Good morning, everybody. My name is Arisa, and I am still an alcoholic. I am so glad to see so many of you still here this morning to talk about God as a verb. I had fun titling these sessions. I don't usually do that the same way. This one was really, just so you know, this was because of some of the suggestions you sent in, and this is stuff that came up for me. God is a verb. So you've heard me talk a lot this weekend about how my idea of God calls the shots, right? So if that is true, and if you can only give to me but not take away unless I give you that power, if my state of consciousness decides what the next moment is going to be like, then it leads me into finding prayers that invade my consciousness if I want a deep and lasting change. And like I said, that triangle also means change. It stands for delta, which is change. That my idea of God is the only toxic God there ever is, that God isn't toxic, it's just what I think about God. And one of my sponsors used to say, you can't live off of the food you ate last week. That's why we need our daily bread. And that manna falls from heaven. And if you don't know what that means, I'll let you look it up. But that it's not me taking care of me, but it is me accepting what is being given to me. That this God of love is trying to break through. And I have to be looking for those fingerprints that God is never fickle. I am. God bless you. I am. You know, I had a tendency to, like I said, try harder, do better, try harder, do better. For those of you old enough, it's like when my dog was trying to run on linoleum. A whole lot of action and not getting anywhere. You know, today I guess we'd say a treadmill, but it's this idea that until I can really find a way to love God, I won't believe that God loves me. And that I have these mindsets that need to be changed. That I need to learn how to detach with love, even from me. Because what I think I know has me so stuck. I think I know what you think. I think I know what's right. I think I know what I need. And I don't trust the God GPS that's rerouting me every time I make a wrong turn. I think I know, oh my God, I need to stop trying to outwit Waze because it knows when there are car accidents. And I don't. It's not the way I would go, but now I'm sitting in traffic for 3 hours. So love really grounds me by giving me focus, direction, motivation. And if I don't find them in love, if I don't, because we need them, it is a basic need to be that I will look for them in hate. I will look for them in condemnation. Because nature abhors a vacuum. If you do not plant love, you will end up with hate. You know why? What's the opposite of love? Nope.
Indifference.
Yes, ma'am. Indifference. Good answer. The opposite of love is indifference. Think about it. You are more tied to the people you hate. They've got your remote control. They have power, strength, and direction over your life. If you don't like someone, let them go. Let them go. It's indifference, to be unaffected. That's what true tolerance is. You be you. Have fun being you. I wouldn't want to be that person. Thank God I don't have to be. I don't have to put my head on that pillow. And that's why I said earlier in the weekend, what can I not accept when I truly know, when I believe to my core that everything that happens in my life, past, present, and future, can be used to make me happier. It's not a given. I am the part of the equation that matters. I'm what changes it if I'm connected to God. That it's when I said it's not my problem, it's my problem with my problem. That so often I learn that the prison I've made, I made it. I'm not a little girl anymore. I'm not in that prison. It's beautiful out there. It's time to go run play. And it's time for me to go enter in love and to this union with the person God created. To make sure that self, that true self, has the opportunity to grow in understanding and effectiveness, and let the results of what they do judge them. Another prayer that I'm going to read you a couple more prayers that I've used a lot. May I learn to be someone in whose presence others are better able to recognize God's presence in their lives, so they too might know the freedom I have been graced with. And I think that's why I've ended up being asked to do these sort of things, because I'm willing to show up for that. But one that is even sometimes so much more important. God, I'm not doing very well with this. I want to give it to you, or I want to give it to you and find your solution to it. So I'm taking my hands off so you can put yours on. In other words, prayers don't have to be complicated. Speak from the heart. This is the language of the heart. Absolutely nothing depends on how things turn out. Our minds tell us that it depends on how things turn out. But really, it's about how I see them as it happens. If I see it as negative and harmful, then it will become that. Because I have brought that into my garden, and you guys know what devil's stick is? It's this, it is like a tree sort of. It comes about this thick, goes straight up, big leaves, thorns about that long. That's why it's called devil's stick, because you grab that thing and you're getting hurt. And if you want that in your garden, be my guest. It'll make a great hedge and keep the world out. But when we build walls, we keep out love. I don't want to keep out the love. We talk about boundaries a lot. I hate it when people talk about boundaries most of the time. They're great. Boundaries are great, but we misunderstand them. I don't need to give you my boundary because I can't make you stay in bounds. I can't. When you tell someone, here's the line, don't cross it, then you got to stand there and watch and see if they cross it. That's why we've got border control. That's why people put up fences. Don't cross my line, but it's all on you. The boundary's for me. If your fists are swinging, I need to make sure that I am outside of the radius of your fist, and that is my responsibility. The boundary is for me. You don't get to treat me that way anymore. That's what being a woman of grace and dignity is about. I step away. If I know that I'm dealing with an alligator, I put on protective clothing. I need to know who I am. What am I dealing with? Is it a lion or a kitten? Because you don't treat the two the same. And you need to understand the nature, and it's okay when people are broken for you to know that. That's not condemnation. When I talk about God being a verb, it's because if I have God in my heart, then I can use my brain. After all, it says God gave us our brains to use. If I am willing to do these disciplines, if I am willing to be like that cowboy and jump on that horse and hang on and keep doing this, eventually, you know what? Your brain will start to be a tool and not be running over you. I remember I started waking up praying. It just happened. Because it's what I do, because I'm praying all the time, because, and I start seeing things differently, because, and I love to read about neuroscience, like it's actually like scientifically proven. The more you practice gratitude, the more you practice prayer, it literally rewires your brain. And we are stuck. And these things are sticky because when I was a kid, that toolbox was important. It was important. I needed to do the things that I did. They weren't bad things, most of them. Alcohol saved my life, for example. However, my problems today, my solutions today to my problems are sometimes worse than the problems themselves. And I need to make sure that I'm looking for the best one, not just the one that's most convenient. And that's why when I talk about like learning some of the tools, right? Like with my father has to be right. No matter what, he's right. He has to win at Candyland no matter how old the kids are, 3 years old, doesn't matter, he's got to win. You cannot tell my father anything. He's always right. He's worked on both Obama campaigns. He's a raging liberal, which is his right, whatever. But my sister is not. My sister is a Republican all the way the other direction. And they cannot be in the same room without wanting to come to blows. And it's tragic, right? It's tragic. But she learned intolerance from an intolerant person. And as opposed to what I learned was you could be right, which does not say he is. That's interesting. Which doesn't say anything, if it's confrontational. Now, when I say you could be right, I will be honest. Often in my mind, I am saying, but not today. Restraint of tongue and pen is important. I get to decide which battles I want to fight. Why fight someone who is never open to having a conversation, which is two people actually having a discussion? Why? Why do that? Why put myself in conflict when the spiritual thing is to cease fighting anything or anyone? Anything or anyone. That love eventually will conquer all. I really do believe that. That what matters in the end is what kind of God I believe in. To follow God's is to change my understanding, not yours. Not yours. It is easier to jog somebody's memory than their understanding. Some of you will have heard me, some of you will not. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Sometimes I get calls 5 years later. I heard you speak. But when love touches suffering, that's where mercy comes in. That's how I can see my father's pain. I can see his need to be right as part of his pain. That does not mean I need to invite it in all the time. It does not mean that I get inside his hula hoop. I can bring God in as that verb because you showed me God through your actions. You loved me until I knew how to do that even a little bit for myself. That's why I think I said yesterday, in all the ways you have harmed me knowingly or unknowingly, out of your own pain or ignorance, I am now ready to release this burden and completely forgive you. Because I need to be free. That forgiveness, you see, in the nightly review, when it says we ask God's forgiveness, and I told you I hated that because it made it sound like now I got to beg God for forgiveness, but it isn't that. It's that I still have lack of power. I need God as a verb in my heart so that I can forgive me, so that I can see you differently. I don't like the way some people behave in the world, but I don't believe that God necessarily made them that way. We are a series of our own self-will run riot. It didn't have to be that way. I told you about my dad when he was little, taking care of a catatonic mom, taking care of his little sister, finding food when there was none. He's in Brazil with his father off saving people, and he is left as a child to figure out how to provide for these people. When I can see that, it doesn't mean that's who I'm looking at today, but it does tell me that that is what is down deep in there, and I can know that. And I can have compassion for the fact that he has put himself in prison. But that's his jail and those are his rocks. And I don't have to deal with it. I told you I really haven't, I don't know where my dad is. And I tried calling a whole bunch. It's been almost 2 years now. I know he now is somewhere in the Houston area, just like my mom ended up. I know they sold his house. I know certain things, mostly through whatever. I asked for his address. I was told I could write to him at my sister's address, which I hadn't had until then. She had moved. Both my sisters had moved and not shared their addresses. But I was allowed to write to him at her address. So I did, because I would do that to any old man. I did that until I started having more surgeries. And I haven't sent a card since, I don't know when exactly. I did send a Christmas card, but I sent postcards, because what they said was, thinking of you. There's not much room to write on a postcard. It's a short, successful visit in a whole nother way. However, on Christmas Eve, he called. Now, he hadn't responded to his birthday. I texted him I was told I was not allowed to call him anymore. I could text him, though. But he doesn't respond to the texts. On his birthday, I texted him, and it was clearly somebody else who responded, and it said, "We are so blessed." My father does not talk like that. He may be the son of a missionary, but he never talks about God unless he's talking about hell. So that was not my dad. I don't know who it was, but it doesn't matter. And so that I stopped texting, because clearly I'm not texting with my father. And I have these surgeries. And on Christmas Eve, he leaves a voicemail about how awful I am. Because it's been so long since I have looked in on him, and how much he deserves to have a daughter, and blah, blah, blah. And he, by the way, he's always telling me that I need to get all my siblings together so he can have his children together. He left 2 more messages the next day, guilt trip messages. And I haven't returned the calls. Why would I? It's not as if he even knows. He knew that I had 2 surgeries, and he hasn't asked about me once. And the truth is, I don't have the bandwidth. It's not where I have to put my focus. I don't want to put my focus there, and I don't hate him. I do care about him in a very detached way, though. I hope he is well. I sing my sister's praises like crazy. She ended up with the guy, my sister really hates my dad. And she did all the work she was trying to push off on me, but, and God bless her, she sold the house and, she got it cleaned up and she did all this and she's got him and she's doing it all. And I'm so, anybody who asks, she's done an amazing job with something she didn't want to have to do. And I can respect that. And I can respect that she's angry as hell. And why in the world would I get in the middle of that? I don't need to. All I'm going to do is piss her off again. If she changes her mind, she changes her mind. But what I do know is that I would rather give my time and energy right now to you. Because I don't have a whole lot of it. And I get to choose, because what I feed will grow. And the truth is, there were years when I had these little sick kids where my dad was off gallivanting the world, and I didn't even have his phone number because he didn't want me to have it. I don't owe him anything. I owe my children a future, a mother who sees them and hears them and doesn't run herself down so that she can be there for them. I have to choose. Everything is limited. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. And I get to deal with the fact that I do feel guilty sometimes, because I have an idea in my head of what a good daughter should be. And I got to write some inventory. This is very current. I talk about where I am, not where I was, a lot. I wrote this inventory very recently because something else kind of helped me see what it was. But this role of being a good daughter, the stage character of being the good daughter, well, if it's a play, if it was a play on stage, and the role is good daughter, there's another role that has to be in the story. It's a father or a mother. And mine don't qualify. They are people. But I've been trying to daughter people that weren't parents. And in so doing, I've been setting myself up instead of realizing that the call is right. The call to be that person is right. So who are the people that deserve what that role calls for? And I'm looking at them. I'm looking at them. You guys deserve God's daughter. You guys are God's kids. He exited stage left. I am not going to force him into my life. That is not what a good daughter does. It's his life. If he wanted to be a part of my life, he would have been. The man has been all over the world. The man does anything he wants. Both of my parents, they do whatever they want. I don't know how it is. Every person in my life, both my sisters, my brother, both of my parents, all of them, they do what they want. They make sure that they're taken care of first, but somehow they told me I wasn't supposed to do that. They said it out loud a lot. And I, instead of watching their feet, I listened to them. They have a lot to teach me. No man is your friend, no man is your enemy, every man is your teacher. What didn't I learn? They did teach me. They did teach me that I need to make sure I'm putting my oxygen mask on first. I joke a lot, when you get on the airplane and it says, should the cabin lose pressure, the oxygen. Like, I really felt like I would be selfish if I didn't put the oxygen mask on you first. But the reality is, I might help 3 people and then I'd be dead. But if I put mine on first, I can help a whole lot more people. And that is why my daughter was home for only a few days at Christmas. And the last thing I'm going to do is spend any time with a person who couldn't be bothered to pick up a phone, respond to a text, acknowledge a letter or a postcard or anything, or tell me where I am, or anything. No. My kids deserve to have me that day. That's how I could best serve God. And that is how I get to learn the lessons that my parents actually did teach me. That everybody else doesn't come first. That it's not selfish or self-centered to make sure that I have my oxygen mask on first, that I am breathing in this love of God, so that all of the garbage that is in here goes through this spiritual alchemy, and it gets changed. It is no longer what it was. Everybody goes into the crucible. You know what a crucible is? It's if you make jewelry, or like the blacksmiths, like it's a big thing where you melt metal into it. Okay, and I used to work with this medium and casting bronze statues and all kinds of stuff. Anyway, most people don't know that. So you have to heat it up to the melting point, but there are additives that you can put in that will lower the melting point. Everybody has to go into the crucible. But if you add God, you don't have to stay in so long. And the thing is when you come out, you get to be something beautiful. Because, see, that's what spiritual alchemy is all about for me. You guys taught me that the worst things in my life, that if I add enough God to it, the alchemists were trying to turn lead into gold. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, you taught me how to turn crap into gold. And when the pressure's really, really, really high, when you think you can't take it any more, when you are at the up to which you cannot put, maybe that's how you make diamonds. Literally. Coal. 2 tons of coal was in the basement of my husband's house when oh my God, my husband, where he grew up in. When coal is pressurized, it becomes diamonds. And here's the truth. It's really hard to be a diamond in a rhinestone world. But you can be. Let the others be fakes. See, I didn't like a lot of religions because it didn't look to me like they were the real deal. But it's not actually what the religions are saying. It's the people. They're rhinestones. I don't like them. It's a few people that make me want to say none of it. None of it. Can I be quick to see where religious people are right? Yeah, so what? Some of them are fakes. Big deal. There are a couple of them out there that are the real deal. And those are the ones I care about. That's why we say stick with the winners. Like I said, and they help you run faster. I will go to any lengths to be with my people. And I mean the like-minded, like-hearted people. And I need to stop going to any lengths that other people are telling me I should do, which is out of alignment with my calling from God. I am here to play the role that God assigns. God is the principal. We are his agents. I'm looking around the room. I think almost all of you. Who's not seen the Blues Brothers? I would have guessed. Okay, well, all right. The rest. Okay. Homework. 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 Okay. John Belushi all right, Blues Brothers. They're on a mission for God, man. They're on a mission for God, and man, they put their Ray-Bans on and they dance and they sing every single time something goes bad. Every time they get hit sideways, they sing and they dance more. They put their Ray-Bans on and they absolutely insist on enjoying life. They're having the spiritual temper tantrum and nobody and nothing is getting in their way.
And they're least cool guys that look and are so cool.
They are so,
and they're so freaking cool.
And they're so freaking cool. And they actually went on tour and they played. They really were. They did the whole music deal as the Blues Brothers too. You gotta look them up if you don't know them. Baby, get your Ray-Bans out.
And your fedora.
You are an agent for God. That's what you're called to. And don't let anybody get in your way. When you know what your heart is calling you to, when you know where God is asking you to go, we go to any lengths. Strap the back brace on, put the Ray-Bans on, get somebody else to drive you. It doesn't matter. You get there. T-bone the car. I don't care. I'm getting there, baby. Don't tell me what God can't do. My dear friend Liz Bailey, she's at the big meeting in the sky too. She was the one that always said that. Don't tell me what God can't do. That's where that comes from. And Liz got diagnosed with cancer. God, I don't even know how long ago. And let's just say she outlived the doc who diagnosed her by about 45 years. And I met her when I lived in New York. She spoke for Bill Wilson at one of his birthday dinners and anniversary dinners. And she ended up living just a few blocks from me. Because I had a friend, I sent one of my sponsees who was a nurse to pick her up, to bring her to Boston, where she had never seen her daughter who lived in Boston. And that's how she ended up in Boston, right around the corner from me. Because that's what we do. We suit up, we show up. And we absolutely insist on enjoying our life. And I get to be, we say all the time, you may be the only big book someone sees. But what the big book is the roadmap. It's not the treasure. It's the roadmap. It's the roadmap to the top of the mountain. And when you're there, what you have is love. What you have is happy, joyous, and free. So what you really are is an agent for God. You may be the only God somebody ever sees. You may be the only love somebody ever sees. You don't know what somebody else is going through when they don't say hello to you and you find out later their mother died that day. You don't know. So how about instead of comparing my insides to everybody else's outsides, I start assuming that you've been as hurt as I am, as I have been, and that I want to help you on this path in any way that I can. That doesn't mean it's my job to smooth it all out and make it easy. No, it doesn't. In fact, it's the opposite. It's not my job to smooth out your path, because you need to trip and fall as much as I did. You need to fall down and go boom as much as I did. And you need to know that I'll be there to help you up, because that's what we do. I don't care how many times. Nelson Mandela, actually this comes from Nelson Mandela, he said, I don't want to be judged by what I do right. I want to be judged by how many times I've fallen down and gotten back up. Me too. Me too. Anybody a baseball fan? I think it was you who was saying that. Somebody said it. Anyway, so whether it's David Ortiz or Babe Ruth, home run kings, right? If you don't know, they got like one of the best If somebody's gonna, man, he's coming up to the plate. Home run king. You know what else? These two are the best. They got the best
strikeouts.
You got it, baby. They strike out more than anybody else. Huh? Because they're always swinging for the fences. Yep, always swinging for the fences. If you're not swinging for the fences, given 100%, you can't get the home run. And you have to be willing to risk absurdity. You have to be willing to put yourself out there. You have to be willing to stand up. You think I never wanted to start a meeting. I never wanted to do any of this. I am standing, no offense, okay? I don't mean just you, but standing up in front of some of the most selfish, self-centered, judgmental people on the face of the earth and opening up and letting you just see. Really? No thanks. And yeah, like I said, I've been criticized a lot. But it's not fear that's going to keep me in anymore. I'm willing to do these things. I never wanted to start a Big Book meeting. I never wanted to start a meeting of any sort. I never wanted to do any of this stuff. But I am willing to. That's what Alcoholics Anonymous asks us. Are you willing to? We don't run for election. We are willing to stand. And before we do that, we are supposed to get consent. Is somebody chiming me, I hope? We are supposed to get consent from our families so that they understand what that impact is going to mean to us before we do stand for a position. Isn't that interesting? So everything that I do, when Liz asked me, I was very clear, I have to talk to David. Okay? I have to see how this is going to impact my family. I don't just say yes. I get asked to do a lot of things, and most years do about 2. Some years I'll do a little bit more than that now that the kids are older, but 2. And because my family needs me to be there, and I sponsor a lot of people. And I can do a lot of good here, but is it how I'm going to best serve thee? It depends on how much I'm pissing my husband off. And I don't want him to be pissed off. Because if he doesn't love you, then it'll be harder for me to come here. And he wants me here. He likes the effects produced in his marriage when I come here. He had some problems when his dad died, and as I told you, his dad and my mom died at the same time, and he he had a hard time. Let's just leave it at that. And at some point during the pandemic, because it was just, it was August of 2019, and the pandemic came, and he came to me and he asked me if I could put him in touch with someone who would take him through the steps. And it was one of the most wonderful things that he ever did. And the guy really doesn't need Al-Anon, or he's not an alcoholic. But he had some stuff, and he didn't want to go to a therapist. He really wanted to work the steps because he believes in them and he loves them. And one of his favorite pieces of literature is Bill's essay on leadership. If you haven't read it, it's really cool. But this idea that nothing depends on how things work out, only on how I see them as they're happening. That's the attitude adjustment. Whenever I am disturbed, the problem is within me. How do I need to? So attitude actually relates to like a trajectory of a plane coming in. Because if you don't come in just right, it's not good. My son is a pilot. My stepfather was a pilot. My grandfather was a pilot. And you know how we talk about the beam? The beam? You got to be on the beam. That's another thing people really get mixed up on. So when Bill was writing the Big Book, do you think he would have known who somebody like Mary Lou Retton was, or ever seen a gymnastics, he never would have seen a balance beam, most likely. I mean, they had radios, but airplanes were really new in World War I. They weren't watching gymnastics anywhere. Not a thing. It's not a balance beam. It's a radio beam. It's a radio beam. It is a beacon. What they did is they sent out the radio beam. So when the pilots were lost in the clouds, they could tune in and find the frequency, and it drew them into safe harbor. I get goosebumps every time I say that. That is why my home group is called the Beacon Group. Because we're calling you in. It's not about don't fall off. You can't fall off. You can only tune in. Come closer, come closer. We're here. There is safe harbor. That's God. Open wide arms. Wherever you are, you can find it. If you're willing to seek. If you're hell-bent on finding it, you'll probably be seeking a lot longer. You'll get lost 40 years in the desert, right? You won't have connectivity for your GPS. You know, the whole point is not, am I getting the answers, but am I asking better questions? When I was a little girl, I did not know that I was getting some of the best wisdom I ever heard from a little 45 record. And it was a song, and it said, question me and answer loud and clear. I will answer with a question clear and bright. Even though your answer may be wrong, my question will be right. Ask. Ask. If you get it, just keep asking better questions. Ask God. I don't know. You know, that hallway, oh my God, nobody likes being in the hallway. But when you're in the hallway, knock on door number 1. If you don't like it, just go knock on door number 2. If you don't like it, try number 3. Nobody's saying you have to go in. The hallway is underrated. It's all about options. This is your life. You get to do whatever you want. And you should. Because that's what God has asked of you. To go be you. We don't need another me. I'm here. We need you. I need you. The world will not be complete without you. We are all different because God chose the world to be that way. Because just like looking at a snowflake that brings wonder to your eyes. I remember the first time I saw snow. It was in Central Park. I was walking back from my home group or from a morning meeting or something. I'm walking across Central Park and it started to snow. And I had never seen snowflakes. And the sun was out also. And it was like diamonds falling from it was so beautiful. Come back to wonder. Did you just wave at me? Come back to
12 minutes.
Thank you. Come back to wonder. That's why we're all different. Because each and every one of us, we have something that will make everybody want to drop the mic. You have something to offer that nobody else has. You don't need to compete with anybody. The only thing holding you back is your idea of God. If I let myself let love ground me, let love focus me, to direct me, to motivate me, then I will have what God is trying to get me to, which is happy, joyous, and free. And I won't need to be focused on you missed a spot, what you were doing wrong, what you didn't do right, what's not in my life, what I don't have enough of. I won't have the specters of the past anymore. I have a lot of shrapnel, not literal. My sponsor likes it, I call it shrapnel. Because sometimes something will happen and there'll be like this thing that comes up that wasn't, like, the thing about shrapnel is you can't get it all out. You have to wait until it works its way to the surface. And then you can safely remove it. There are some things, some wounds that are so deep that it takes time for them to wiggle up. And I never liked when people talked about the layers of the onion, only because there's no core to the onion. I'm like, it means there's nothing left. But then I grew onions. And there is something left. It's the roots. It's the roots to grow a whole new thing. Isn't that cool? Right? So maybe it's not such a bad analogy after all. Because if you let all of that stuff go, you get a new beginning. I am not the woman that walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. That woman had no choice. She had to drink. She had no power, choice, control, or even ideas of how she could make it through the day without a whole lot of alcohol. And it started off like a white knuckle. And we had a chalkboard in my first home group. And every day, somebody wrote a quote on the chalkboard from the big book. It was a noon meeting. I went to 2 meetings a day because like I said, I was in my parents' home for a little while. So I went to at least 2 meetings a day. And the noon meeting was not a loony noonie. It was the hardcore meeting. And that's where they made me wash the ashtrays. So every day there was a quote from some conference-approved literature, most often the big book, but not always. And I would sit there, and they were like pearls. When you guys asked me the other day, did you get your pearls back? I'm thinking, this is the kind of pearls I was thinking of. So it was like, pearls? Yeah. And I don't know, I was maybe 3 weeks sober. And this big old cowboy, his name's Lane, I actually saw him again about just before the pandemic. And he came up to me, he said, "Little lady." Not very many people get to call me that. And he was a big old cowboy, wearing a hat the whole nine, And I'm like, yes? He said, the young woman who's been doing that chalkboard, she got herself a job. So we were thinking you should do it. And I looked at him and I said, "I don't think I'm qualified." And he said, "Oh, darling, you are qualified." And he's one, nobody in that group ever said to me, "I spilled more than you drank." They didn't. They made sure that I felt welcome in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. That man loved me more than he realized. That I felt so loved. But not only that, I had to read the big book. And every other book I could get my hands on, because I was going to make sure you stayed sober every day. And one of the hardest things for me when I moved to different places is not every place does what my home groups do, and my home group today does, which is if you want what you call a job, we used to call commitments. We go on commitments, but we don't call them that. We call jobs commitments, you call them jobs. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's the same thing, but it was confusing at first. But many of the groups that I went to as I've moved different places, there were only a handful of jobs. The groups where I got sober, Baby, we found you a job, and we still find you a job. You walk into my home group, we will find you. We will make one up for you. You know? We will make one up for you. Because that, when we talked about the circle and the triangle, that's how we get the unity. Get them in. How do you make them feel a part of? You're doing that this weekend. You're doing that this weekend. But how do I do that for every person that walks in the door? If I don't know someone at my home group, it's my responsibility to make sure that they don't leave without me at least doing my best to say hello, find out if they're new, do they have a big book, do they have a meeting list, and by the way, if they are new, I'm running around, I say hello quickly, and then I start running around the room, and I'm like, you need to go, and this goes for men and women. I told somebody this story, God is a verb. When I moved to New York, my first apartment was on West 34th Street between 10th and 11th. Now that's still Hell's Kitchen, okay? And I lived there for, I don't know, a month or so when they picked up a serial killer across the street. So I thought it was time to move because I really was afraid to go to meetings at night, which was actually a good call. So I found another basically dorm rooming house. Actually, if you've ever seen Bosom Buddies, it was one of those, except teeny tiny and not so nice. But only women, and they're called SROs, and now it's a homeless shelter. But anyway, so I move in, and I have the meeting list book. The New York meeting list book it's pretty thick. And so I've moved into a new neighborhood, so the first thing I do is I look up a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And there is one on my street. And it's going to start pretty soon. So, okay, I'm going to go to, I'm not good with numbers. My husband will tell you I add and drop zeros kind of, was it 300 or 3,000? And I remember. You know, and probably because 30 was a lot of money, you know? I mean, man, I still have my first big book, which was $5 because they didn't give big books. You had to buy it, so you wouldn't throw it away. Yeah, we won't give away big books at my home group either. Now we make very generous credit arrangements. You can pay whenever you want. You can pay a penny a week. We don't care, but it's just so you know, it's yours. And I still have it. I kept it backwards on the shelf during college because I thought I might need it someday. I'm not going to throw away $5. But the point is, I get out the meeting list book, and then I have to go down to the street because I can't remember my address. So I'm down on the street and looking around. It's my building. I come back inside. I go up to the receptionist. I'm like, "Is there an AA meeting here?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's down in the basement." I'm like, "Okay." So I go down to the basement, and the room is full of mostly black men, few Hispanic men, but mostly black men. It's not a men's meeting, but I'm the only woman there. And then I start realizing that I recognize all of these black men because they work in my building. They all work in my building. They all live in Harlem in a sober house, and their job is to run this building. They are mopping the floors, running the elevators. They're cooking my breakfast and my dinner, and I have more sobriety than any of them. And they don't know crap about the steps. They don't know anything really about the big book. They've got how it works, and then it's my dog died and my cat is whatever, and I'm like, ooh. And when anybody anywhere reaches out for help, I want the hand of AA always to be there for that. I am willing to be responsible. And I don't know any men to send them to. And the first fifth step I listened to in New York was one of those young men. And I know he stayed sober for a long time, but I helped a lot of those guys because I was there. And I could. And because I knew I was looking for my AA, where are my people? And I couldn't find them. But then I found the answer in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Though you may be but one man alone with this book. And I just want you to know, I'm from old school, so when it says man, it means man and women because we get both. Okay? I have no issue with it saying man because it used to mean men and women. And so they get screwed, we don't. Just saying, I'm a hyper-feminist. When I say man, I'm not cutting us out. I'm getting them short shrift, if anything. Just saying. Though you may be but one man alone with this book, that if I carry this message, the fellowship will grow up around me. Am I willing to do that? There's one of my people. That's somebody that I met when she was barely sober. That's the first woman that I sponsored in Boston. And she's been sober ever since. And she's the one that took her weekend to drive me up here to be here with you. This is what my chosen family looks like. I don't always find my people. I was looking for my people in my mother, in my father, in my sisters, in my brother, in some of my... Those aren't them. Who are they? They're the people that I carry the love to. Be the change you want to see in the world. You see, when I change, it's like a recipe. I'll end with this. Anybody a baker? You can, or even if you're not, you can follow a recipe, right? Well, if the recipe has arsenic in it, it will be toxic. But you see, when I change, when I take the arsenic out and I put in the sugar, it's beautiful. It's wonderful. See, that's why my father can't treat me the same way, because I changed. The recipe is different because I am different. You can't treat me the way you used to because I am not the same thing. And therefore, whatever we combine is different. The outcome is different. And if I don't like the results, I can change again. And I can keep doing that. And I can keep looking at me. Because if you are my problem, I'm screwed. But if I am my problem, then I can go to God and I can be that triangle and I can want to change. And I can ask God for the power. God, please set aside everything I think I know. Everything. I know a lot of people say, God, please help me set aside. I don't do that. Just saying. It was my grand sponsor who started that prayer. And that's when I go to God for something, I don't ask God to give me the ability to do it. If God asks me to, then I get to ask God for that. God, please set aside everything I think I know about fill in the blank or just period, so that I can have a truly open mind for a much needed new experience. And I do not end it with, let me see the truth. You don't want to know why? Because that just negated the prayer. Because all of a sudden I think I know what the truth is. You see that tree out there? Any one of them. If we drew a triangle around one of those trees, and I put one of you on each point, and I gave you a Polaroid and asked you to take a picture, it would look like 3 different trees. The truth of that tree, you would think you knew, but you don't. In fact, you can't know the truth of that tree unless you can also see its roots. You need to see it from on top. You need to see it from 360 degrees. Not only that, but you need to know what it feels like for the sap to be running in spring before it leaves out. When it draws back in the autumn and through the winter. You cannot know the truth of that tree until you have experienced the tree and walked at least a mile in its shoes. Don't fool yourselves When you get to I don't know, you're finally teachable. God, please set aside everything I think I know, even about me, even about what God wants, so that I can have a truly open mind for a much needed new experience. Because that's what we're here to have, a new beginning. This is today. It's the only thing that matters right here, right now. I know I'm supposed to be here, right now, as evidenced by the fact that I am. That's it. I'm not so hokey as to, like, oh, see that piece of garbage there on the table? There's a spiritual reason why it's there. Well, actually there is. It's because I didn't get around to cleaning it up. And I'm going to take responsibility for myself today. And it has been such a gift to be with you. And I wish all of you the most beautiful journey, full of trips and bruises and oopsie daisies and people all along the way with their hand out saying, I'm here, let me help you up. Because we don't all fall down at once. That's why it's so important that we stay part of a we. And I hope that I will see many of you on this path of happy destiny over and over again. And in the meanwhile, have a beautiful day. Don't make other plans. Thank you for my sobriety.